Hey. Oh, I'm on the wrong spot. Sorry. I'll have to move that in a bit when we do the dress form. I have it set up to do the full screen. Forgot that I'd moved it a little bit. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. Time is elusive. So, I'm draping today. I kind of am in that like I can't wait any longer to use this dress form as much as I want. So I thought I would drape a little bit today, and I know not everybody has a dress form. I want you to be able to see the whole table, but it just looks weird. I think it's just because it looks weird because the fabric's hanging off, but it won't be in a second. I know not everybody has a dress form, so I know, sorry. But I still think when you are looking at fit on your own body with your garment and kind of seeing where to push and pull fabric, it's kind of helpful. And it is really nice having this inanimate object to do that on, and so that might help you see where you need to push and pull the fabric, and maybe it'll be helpful. So anyway, hey Malen, hey Terry, how are you guys? You guys doing good? Hey Karen, how's it going? So I'm just prepping my fabric. I was going to do this off camera, and then I realized maybe someone out there is trying to drape, and I'm just going to tell you, I've draped since college, but it has never been my full-time gig. I have never worked as someone who draped. I've even worked at plenty of places that didn't even have dress forms, because that's totally possible, because they just do all their pattern drafting through the flat pattern. Hey Patty, how's it going? So I just want to say I'm not an expert in draping, but I do it, I'm trained to do it. It's just not something I did a lot of. So it's not a very practical skill in the garment industry as far as what you're going to use on a daily basis, because you're not custom fitting. Draping is a custom thing. Unless you're having a lot of trouble trying to figure out a certain pattern, or you really want to see what it's going to look like. I see really big companies that manufacture in China do it, because then they can like see it on the dress form before, and then they're just doing like a quarter of the whole pattern, not a quarter scale, but a quarter of the pattern, and then they send it off. So hey Ray, how's it going? So draping is kind of one of those things that is strongly affiliated with sewing and fashion, but it actually is just really just used in custom and couture, runway stuff. So fitting, stuff like that, when you need an inanimate object to actually drape on. And I have my Myosotis bodice on here just because I was like, hey, I want to check that out. I already have it cut out. I won't be sewing this dress on camera, this particular one, because the gingham will be too crazy with the cameras. But I probably will do my floral gauze one, even though me and gauze right now need to take a little break. So, all right, so I'm just prepping my fabric here, and I'm just going to draw a straight line up there, and that's going to be the center front. And then I need to draw a square line at about my bust line, and it's really hard if I can't be over. Ooh, I just moved that. Yeah, I don't have a square anymore, just so you know. See, I'm not a true draper. Hi, Louise. How's it going? So let's see. I just need to make sure I have enough room to do all my draping. So this will be fine. I'll just cut this off. So we have one for our front. And I also need to mark my side seam. Doesn't Rachel use that, Terry? Wait, is that the one she used? I feel like it's Rachel Meyer. There were a few Rachels in stream, and one of them is using a system. I don't know anything about it. Okay, let me take this off here. I'll switch to the full camera in just a second, but I'm just prepping my fabric here. So right now I'm going to measure from my side seam across my bust and to the center front. And I'm going to find that spot right here. That is my side seam, and this is my bust line. Oh, I can mark my apex as well while I'm at it, which I actually don't have marked on my dress form, crazily enough. So, let's see. Is that is that a computer system? I'm gonna go right there. Nothing like marking your apex. I'm sure they're actually not symmetrical, but that's a conversation for another day. Am I right, ladies? All right, so let's mark 3 5/8. That doesn't really look like 3 5/8. I feel like it's more like right here. And then we're gonna mark our side seam. All right, so we have our center front. And I just need to iron this back right here. And then we'll have our back too. Oh, thanks, you guys. This is the Moneta dress, sleeveless. It's 107 here today. So this is what you guys get. See, when you tear fabric, it binds it up. So I typically don't tear fabric, but that is actually what you're trained to do when you're draping. And maybe if I had ironed it out, it would have been fine, but I don't really like tearing fabric ever. I do it sometimes when I'm like taking a length of fabric off of a big roll and it's like I'm staying there with the roll. You know, I'll clip the top and rip it. And I've usually given myself a buffer. All right, so we have that. So now let's do the back. So then we're ready to go right into it when we're at that point. Just trim that off. I'm just drawing a straight line, trying to use these flowers, but they're kind of weird, you know? Hey, Derek, how's it going? Is that a computer system or is it a style of pattern drafting? I looked it up once and then I just forgot. Kind of interesting. All right, and then here's my square. I'm not used to this being my square. I never use these quilting rulers, but they're out right now because I was doing that jelly rainbow thing. All right, so I'm gonna do this a little further down like this. All right. And that'll be my shoulder blade. All right. Let's iron this. Hey, Walter. Style of drafting. Oh, okay. That's cool. So is it like you're saying you're buying a Lutterlow system. Is it something like you get the tools to do it? Ooh, that sounds good, Walter. There's, you know, when you want a grilled cheese and you get a grilled cheese, there's something about that that's really satisfying. It reminds me of eating them with tomato soup. All right, so let's see here. So this is my back. It's quite a lot of fabric here, so let's trim off the fold. These pieces are kind of gigantic because I'm out of practice. All right, let's do the front, and I'll switch the camera. All right, and let me move the camera back like that. You get tools. Okay. Hey, Claire. How's it going? So how are you guys? This has been such a weird, like, couple weeks for me. And the stuff in the news about, like, the police and, I don't know, it's just, like, it's so disheartening, you know? Alright, so I'm gonna pin this at my center front neck and at my waist. So this, what I'm going to draft today, I don't actually have like a nailed down plan in my head, but I will say the basic bodice that I'm going to be doing is more of like a, it's going to be actually a wearable basic bodice. Hi, Ellen. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Welcome. It's a really good group of people here. So always feel free to ask questions and chime in or challenge me on something. If you're like, I've always been taught to do it this way, I'm totally open to any of that stuff. So, you know. It's very interactive for me, and I just don't feel like there's just one good answer either. All right, so I'm going to pin my bust line. You want that parallel to the floor. I'm looking everywhere for pins, but I put them right there. There's not much to pinch in my front waist anymore. Alright, so let's start looking at this. So we can see, like, here's my excess, and then here's my excess, which I'll probably put in the side in the bust area. Traditionally, this is a shoulder dart because it establishes your princess line, which I already have. So I'm not really concerned with my princess line. The princess line is really important on women's wear. But it's not something you see a lot in clothing. It's just a really great place to establish where that fullest part of the body is going this way around it. And it also establishes like the apex and where you're going to pinch out any fullness. So, because usually this is the fullest part and then it gets narrower and narrower there, right? So, all right. And then halfway in between would be kind of, yeah, I mean, this is where I'm going to pinch this out, about right here, like that. But first, let's get our neckline going. So like I said, I'm going to not be doing this. Like, see, the cover I put on this dress form wouldn't be something I would wear, right? It's just too tight and there's no ease. It's basically just a cover to fit it's like making a second skin. Hey, Jen, how's it going? This one, oh, this one right here. This one right here, this is the princess line, and it's where, so this is the fullest part of my bust, and this is where I'm going to be pinching out the excess right there. So it's the princess line. So it's where the dart usually goes, right about there. My darts used to be so much bigger. And then I'm going to, so like I'm saying, like, see, typically the basic bodice, and when we did this last December, I kind of made you guys jump through the hoops of drafting your bodice, and it would be like something like this. So I can understand why a lot of folks were like, "Whoo, boy, this does not fit me, and this is really tricky." It is so hard to fit yourself when it's something that tight, and so we probably should have gone a different route. But I really wanted to just use that as a launching point and get you directly into this, like a basic bodice that's a little bit more usable. And so typically what I do when I draft my basic block, even if I'm not using the dress form, because I have never had a custom dress form till this year, I always used flat pattern making to make my basic blocks. And my basic block was something I could have worn, kind of like the Archer. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Archer, the Aster. So this Aster shirt, you guys have seen me wear this. It's a Colette pattern. It's one of the first videos I did. I don't know if this was the fabric I did, but it is a very basic shirt, right? It's got a little yoke on the back. It's got a bust dart on the side. It's wrinkly. It's got a little sleeve, so there's the bust dart right here. So this is almost a basic bodice. I mean, there's some style lines on it. It's got a V-neck. It's got the a button front placket. It's got the yoke with the pleat at the back. those are style lines, but at the same time, if you got something like this fitting you really, really well, you could use it as your basic block and use it kind of going forward. I would get rid of the yoke and at least the pleat, get rid of the pleat at least. And then that way you know. And then, so that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm going for a wearable basic block, because then I know I have the ease in it that I want, and anything I do to that pattern, I know, like, okay, I already know where the ease is on this and I know how it fits me, and now I just need to accommodate whatever style I'm going to be applying to it, because I can use this to make a Oxford, button down shirt, or a nice little darted, blouse with a collar, Peter Pan collar, you know what I mean? So I like to get my basic bodice to a point where it has ease, and I could actually wear it out if it was sewn up and finished, you know what I mean? Whereas something like this basic bodice on this dress form, I wouldn't be caught outside in that, you know what I mean? So that's the difference of the kind that I'm going to be doing. And this is kind of common when people do these at home. They make it so that it already has some ease in it. I'll make the armhole so that it's dropped down a little bit, rather than this armhole right here. This would be like, it's basically like if you were to draw lines on your body, that's what this is right here. And that's what I drafted this to be, was where I knew these were on my body. But then, like, I put that shirt on the dress form today, and I outlined the armhole. I don't know if you can see these pins. I can't get her really that close, but there is a row of pins here. And this is the armhole on that blue shirt I was just showing you, because it's actually a pretty good armhole. And I wanted to see what I've been doing and having a lot of fun with is putting my clothes on and then putting that same garment on here and seeing how it fits when I look at it in the third person. It's been so enlightening and so interesting. And the one thing that it underscores is there's many correct answers, and there's also many wrong answers too. But, it goes to show you, like, when I drafted this armhole on this block, this cover, the dress form comes with a cover, but I really wanted a cover that had princess seams sewn on their waist seams, so that I had some guides when I went to do the draping. This armhole right here, this one right here, on the cover, is, as tight as you could do. I would never wear something like that. And so having it pinned on here where it actually would wear it is so much more useful, because I know now I can go by that when I go to draft my bodice, right? And it's very consistent. So also, I could draft this bodice today, use it for 6 months, and go, you know what? I want to make some changes to this. And that's okay. And I think a lot of sewists who teach, and a lot of people who get really deep into it don't sometimes remember that aspect. But your body changes every month. It changes throughout the month, and it changes throughout the year. And you also change your preferences, and it's ever so subtle sometimes when you start not liking your jeans that low or your jeans that high up. It's there's so many influences there, right? You're being influenced by media and you don't even know it. You're being influenced by comfort. Maybe your lifestyle, like what you do on a daily basis, has shifted. Look at now, everybody's talking about wearing loungewear all the time, because we're all staying at home. So you start looking like your pattern selection probably has shifted a little bit. You're kind of like, oh, those pants look a little cozier. I definitely have done that too. And so I think it's okay to change your mind and just remind yourself of that. You don't think that you're wrong just because you want something different now. So, all right, so here's my neckline, and I think, this, I also drew my V-neck on this, what that blue shirt was, and so I think I'm gonna probably stick to this neckline up here. So normally if I were drafting a bodice, I would go right up to this neckline here, but I'm not going to do that because that's a little too far up there. And I'm also going to mark my shoulder, and so I'm going to pin this, and then I'm going to pin this right here now because that's my new center front neck. And I have to use scissors. What? I mean, I was like, dang, I just made her so short, but that's almost my height. So yeah, just kind of looking for my neckline there. And if this were way up here, I would have to do more of this, like clipping into it to release it. I'm gonna get rid of some of that excess right now, so it's not in my way. If this were for a client, you know, it'd be a little different, but it's for me. All right, so same with the shoulder. Like I said, I'm going to be going with a, I'm going to drape out the fullness here into a bust dart. So that means also that I'm probably going to have to, why do I keep looking for pins there? I think I'll, and then I will mark my princess line on my bodice so I know where it's at. You need these princess lines for like when people talk about slashing and spreading or pivoting things out or full bust adjustment. That's when that princess line, what a terrible name, right? That's when this little princess line is really useful. You don't see it on guys because they don't have the darting that that most women's clothing have. All right, so I'm gonna kind of smooth this out and get rid of some of this. If you ever watch time lapses of draping when they're doing something really fitted, it's really fun because they just like sit there and they, you know, it just kind of sculpts. That's really cool. All right, so let's see here. So there's my side, top of my side seam there. I'm gonna relax this a little bit. Put it at my waist. It's helpful when I have pins underneath, but I don't have one there. So I have this weird thing, if you've ever been in the stream and seen lately, like how I'll fit something to my dress form. And it's really the weirdest, I mean, we all think we have the weirdest fit issues, right? But what am I doing here? Just like willy-nilly doing that. My fabric doesn't slide on this cover very well, so it does kind of create some issues for me. And this is slipped down a little bit. There's my apex right there. So I don't know how I didn't get that right on there, but I didn't get that right on there. So we'll just shift it. Just more like that. But I noticed like my garments, like they like to pool right here, and I get these lines like this. And it's really tight right here and tight right here. And then like I have all this like extra fabric, tons of extra fabric right there. I have found that if I put in a side bust dart and some back vertical darts, it actually takes it away, especially that full bust dart, which is really interesting to me. I think I'm a little bit more prominent here. It can just be a slight amount and it'll make a big difference. And I'm scooped away here and I have a belly. So it's just kind of that weird juxtaposition of a few things at once. I'm going to push that pin away. So let's see here. I want to draw in my apex right there because that's really the line. How did I do that, you guys? You guys watched me. What did I, how did I go wrong there? I like to push the pin at an angle so that it doesn't like slip out. So I'm just kind of looking for where I want this bust dart. But more of like a 1/2 inch away. try not to pin my cover. I'll probably put another cover on this that's in a slipperier fabric, but I kind of dread sewing that, you know. Do I want that to end there, or I think I want this to end here. So let's get rid of some of this down here. And we'll get rid of some of this. I'm looking for my pins that I drew my armhole on. Usually use a soft pencil, not a Sharpie. I'm a little worried I'm gonna get it on my dress form, but at least I can replace the cover, right? So now let's trim, or let's do this. Kind of release some of that tension right there we're getting. So right now there's no ease in my bodice, and so I'll probably do that when I take it off of the dress form. I'm just going to try and mark these points here, and then I can add it. And so ease is obviously something we're always wondering about in a pattern, right? We're like, okay, well, I measure this on their size chart, but that doesn't mean maybe I want that size, right? You kind of do through your shoulders. You don't really want to monkey around with choosing other sizes so that it fits you through your shoulders. I feel like the shoulders is really important. And then, but you may want a looser fit, right? And so it's kind of good when they give you the finished measurements of the garment so you can see the difference between the size you are and the size of the garment, right? So you're like, oh, this has 2 inches of ease. 2 inches of ease is pretty standard. 1 inch would be a pretty close fitting garment. 1 inch is surprisingly does give you ease though. 2 inches is pretty, 1.5 to 2 inches is pretty natural. We're kind of used to that. If you're wearing a woven garment, that you're gonna have that kind of a looser, you know, skim across the body. You know, it'll skim you, and a little more comfortable. And then you're gonna see the things that are like 4 inches of ease, and then you know you're getting in kind of a looser, more relaxed fit. With knits, it's different. Knits would be a negative ease, and so then you're talking about something like this dress. If you were to measure this dress on the table and measure me, the dress measures less, and it doesn't seem like it, right? Because it seems pretty loose on me. But it's just because knits are, you know, they're stretching all the way around. They're not just stretching like this, you know. So that's kind of nice. I feel like I'm putting my dart in the wrong spot. Why is this dart so small? I know why this dart's so small. It's that bowl of ice cream I had last night. For sure. All right, so here's this waist right here is actually what you see me wearing right here. And so this is probably a little higher than some people would want. But for me, I know that this is where my narrowest spot is. It keeps getting a little higher. But, you know, this is like where it's most flattering for me right here. And then I like it to kind of release beyond that. I don't actually want my shirt this short. In fact, I probably shouldn't have cut off all that fabric, but that's okay. And if you look, there's some pins down here. I don't know if you can see those. They kind of swoop, they're kind of like a shirt tail hem, go up like this. That is the shirt over there, and that shirt hits me about right here. And so this right here would be like the like high hip or your actual hip measurement. And so that's what I'm talking about, like not making this like a basic block. A basic block would end right here at this waistline, and that's it. You would put your seam allowance there. that would be it. And then you would do your pant block or your skirt block, and it would go up to that point as well, and you would know. And then if you wanted to make a bodice, or I mean a blouse that say did, you know, this, you know, it went and it came down to here, you would tape your skirt or your pant block to the basic bodice and add it in there, and that's how you would find that. And so and they would call those torso blocks. And so then you have that's when you start getting into fisheye darts, right? So the dart goes to the waist, and this is the fullest amount that the dart would be taken in. And then when it goes out, it starts tapering back out, right? So it's like a mirror image from this point right here. Is this all so technical and boring? We can just chill if you guys want. Like I said, I'm not really an instructional draper. I'm just showing you what I know. Look at that pen just bent. Throw those away, people. Okay. I kind of want to leave this down here. I wish I wouldn't have cut that fabric off. It just never seems like I need that much. I kind of wanted this bodice to be about right here. So I'm going to have to add that back, and that'll be okay. It just happens, you know? Oh, okay, good. All right. So this was where I marked you remember when I marked my side seam right here, that straight line down from the bust line right here. Here it is, but this is actually where my side seam is. You can tell like that's where that your waist tapers here as well. So if you wanted it more fitted, yeah, you could redraw your side seam so that you're kind of darting out this little excess here. But I want to add some ease, right? I kind of want this to be a little more relaxed. Maybe I don't even want a waist dart. I kind of want something there though, because why does this why I feel like this keeps creeping down. I know that's not possible, but it just looks like it's creeping down. Hey, Sydney. Nice, a pre-release fitting. Ooh. I was supposed to be getting my darts in the right place when I'm doing for myself. Right, Patty? I know. Okay. Okay, I saw your... Is that a monkey? I'm the monkey. I know for me, my body, that... I'm just kind of looking at how I want this right here. I feel like it's funny, like, I think the curvier are meaning, I'm using curvy in the respect of being plus size or softer, whatever you want to say. I feel like the curvier I am, the more structure my garment has, the more flattering it is. And so, because I think like when you start getting fluffier and you're wearing your clothes that aren't as fluffy friendly, you start gravitating towards those clothes that are big and loose and comfortable. Maybe that shirt that someone got you that was kind of too big or whatever, right? But when I start going back into like making new clothes for myself and start chipping away at kind of replacing some of those favorite pieces, I kind of gravitate towards adding more structure, because for me, I feel a lot more mobile, and which makes me feel more confident, but I feel less hung up on my clothing if it fits me really well and it's not too tight, and it releases and in the right places and is more relaxed. And I think like this is one thing I do like about like the Cashmerette patterns, is that she does an excellent job of offering styles that do just this, as well as other more classic clothing lines, like maybe Colette, Seamwork, or I'd say Green Line Studio or Closet Case as well. But their Green Line's probably a little more traditional, and Closet Case is a little bit more stylized. So there's options there, but I'm not up to date on their size range inclusivity. So I think anytime you see darts or princess themes, don't shy away from those if you're someone who is looking for things that are a little bit more fluffy friendly. Because I think those things, like when your things fit around your shoulders and they fit you through your torso and they can be relaxed in the right places, it's way more comfortable, you know? So I think, didn't you put a monkey emoji, Ray? Yeah. Yeah. I refuse to, Jen. Even last night, I was like, I really shouldn't be eating this ice cream, but you know, whatever. I don't know. Ice cream for life. I'll give up everything before I give up ice cream. And I eat really, really healthy usually. Like when I'm in complete control of my food and I'm not like at a restaurant or someone's making food for me, I actually eat super healthy. People don't like the way I eat. Except ice cream. I mean, I think ice cream is a really good balance, you know? It's actually, aside from the sugar, it's actually a pretty healthy thing if you eat dairy, you know? So, anyway, I don't need to talk about food. I am not an expert in food, and the way I eat does not appeal to a lot of people, so. But I do eat a lot of vegan food and whole food. I really like whole food. This line right here is really throwing me off. It makes my dart look kind of icky. Yeah, so I think like making your bodice something that you would actually wear and no one would know that was your basic bodice is really helpful. So if I were to pin this line right here, you know, I would actually have all of this right there. See, so if I pin this line right here, this side seam line that we established at the very beginning, see we did that, you could actually get a bigger dart right here. I'm trying to do this so you can see, but it's kind of an awkward angle for me. You know what they do is they go like this. They pin it over here and then smooth it out. Just like that. Put your dart in there and put it in the right spot. But I kind of don't want that, so I'm going to do this the way I want my basic bodice. I think I wish my air conditioner would kick on. Yeah, sure, Ray. No. I always love it when I have a chance at the end of the stream to like type in the chat and say goodbye to you guys or answers like a question someone threw out there at the last second, and I see all the emoji that YouTube has. I'm like, where did this come from? I want this to be kind of relaxed through here. So when I do things like this, when I'm draping and pinning things, I don't actually attach the dart to the dress form. So I don't do this. It's kind of a misleading, it's misleading. You need it to sit free away from the body and it still sit in the same spot you just asked it to be. So when I pin the front bodice to the back, I will actually pin the bodice to each other, and the only pins that we'll have on the dress form are like at the neck and at the waist, front and back, and that's it. And then the rest of it will hang free, because that's kind of important to see how the bodice is actually going to hang once it's not attached to something, because you can't pin it to yourself, right? So oh, I love coconut milk ice cream. So good. Okay. Let me just make some decisions. I wish I wouldn't have cut that fabric off. I'm not liking, I don't know if you can see this right here. That's the one thing. And I really want to go snip, snip, like this. Because that's how I can get rid of it. Because that's what it needs to do. It needs to go in here. See, like when I push it down right there, it's fine. It's this right here needs to release. It needs to go out. And that's because it's getting bigger right here where it's tapered right here. So I just need to decide, you know, what do I want here with my my bodice. I'm gonna mark my new just underscore it. I'll probably make my dart end about right here. It's a little bit more than an inch off of the apex, but that's okay. My bust is kind of full and flat across, and so I try and stay away from this full part. I stay clear away from it because I just feel like this is such a large surface that's flat that if my dart's sitting here, the end of it's sitting here, it actually really shows. And so I try and get it to where it's in a spot on the bust that's a little more scooped or tapered away. Not everybody has a, you know, some women have pointier busts. I don't. Mine's just more fuller, rounder. All right, so I kind of like this, you know, like this is hanging here and it still sits where I want it to. And then when I add ease, you know, what'll happen is it'll sit out a little bit like this. I don't know if you can see that. So I'll add the ease and it'll sit away from the body a little bit. Yeah, I think what I need to do is just drape in my waistline and then drape in a top part of the skirt and then marry the two together. That would be the best thing to do. I don't always do the best thing, but you know, sometimes we look for those shortcuts. So if I kept that there, you can really see the difference that it'll do. Because now I can really pinch this in because now it's all relaxed down below. So let's mark the waist seam here. We'll just go with my natural waist. Like that. And see now when I do that, when I kind of cut up into this area, now this can see how this is all now spreading out right here. These little cuts right here. Now it wants to sit much nicer. It's kind of the magic of it. Let's get rid of that pin there. I wouldn't pin myself there. So that's looking pretty good. I don't even have that pinned right there. Alright. Looks pretty good. Let's do the back. Crumpets. I've never had a crumpet, and the reason I've never had one is because the only ones I've ever seen are in a package, and I feel like that's not the best. That wouldn't be the best way to try out a crumpet. So Nutella. Oh yeah. All right, so let's look. My shoulder blade is right here. So if you were to look in a school design book about draping and pattern drafting, some of these numbers are set. So they would say, I think it's like 4 1/4 inches down, 4 inches, 4 3/8 or something down from the neckline is the shoulder blade. And of course that's obviously not true for everybody, but like everything, there's these standards because they're a launching off point. The other thing they tell you is that this dart is 7 inches long and 1 1/4 inches wide. Or it might be the back. It's actually, maybe it's the back that says that, but it might be the front. I can't remember. And I remember thinking, always? Really? Like everybody's dart right there is 7 inches long and 1 1/4 inches wide? I'm pretty sure that's the back because it's a really long dart. So, do you know how to do laminated dough, Terry? What don't you know how to do? All right, so this is, we'll use this little pin here as my shoulder blade. I mean, the shoulder blade isn't like this critical landmark in pattern drafting for me. But you have to remember, a lot of very traditional pattern drafting, there is a very small shoulder dart, which is 3 inches long and I think it's a 1/2 inch wide. Like, I remember that one because I remember thinking, huh, that's so specific. Ooh, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. My mom, we went to my parents on Sunday. That picture of me with my daughter. What did I post on Instagram? On my personal account, it's the one with me, my husband, and my daughter. I don't know which one. I'm pretty sure. And on my sewing one, it's just me and my daughter. That's my parents' backyard, and my mom made 3 different desserts. She made pumpkin pie because that's my daughter's favorite, and then she made brownies, and she made pineapple angel food cake with toasted coconut. And I was kind of eating little bits here and there. So, hi Eliza, how's it going? Yeah, right, Terry, exactly. I've been kind of craving banana muffins because of one of the books I just read. Whoops, that pen I need to leave there. All right, so let's just mark it. So like I said, like you would have a little shoulder dart here and you'd have a little waist dart there, or a bigger one. Look at this huge piece of fabric. Let's just, now that I've already committed to this, we'll just cut a lot of this off right now. Give ourselves some space. So I'm going to push my pins in on the front so I can drape over. And I'm not going to drape in the shoulder dart. I'll never end up using it. So it is one of those things, sometimes you do have this little awkward little thing here, and you kind of do your best to smooth it out. It is possible. So let's see where I am putting my front woo. So this was my back neck of my blue shirt, and I told myself I'd want my bodice to be a little higher than that. So let's try that. Get that nice and smooth. We'll repin our back neck right there. So just like when you're sewing a neckline, like with a collar or a facing, and you're asked to clip the neckline, that's the exact same thing and the exact same reason. You need it to release. Okay, so we did our best there. See, we have this little bit there. It's just kind of intrinsic. If I were to let it drop out here, it's not the end of the world. It will probably happen because we'll be wearing it, but we're going to try and get rid of most of it. You just kind of want to try and keep these grain lines on your darts on your grain lines, so they won't torque. Oh yeah, Jen, right? That's awesome though. I feel like I'm kind of in that camp too. My shoulders are very straight across, and I'm very picky about the way things fit through here. In fact, do you guys ever look at that one garment, and like plenty of garments in your wardrobe, and as soon as you look at it, the thing that bugs you about it pops in like you look at that shirt and you're like, oh, I'm going to be doing this all day. Or you look at that pair of pants and you're like, so it's just one of those things where, yeah, you start kind of realizing what bugs you, what you're willing to live with, what you're not willing to live with, right? So that's pretty cool that you figured that out. And does the broad shoulder adjustment work on most patterns? Like, can you, because you have to remember, like, I was not trained to do custom pattern drafting, so I don't know a lot of those really cool, like, techniques, like broad shoulder adjustment, full bust adjustment. We would do those things in, on patterns to accommodate that fit issue if it was common, but we didn't name it anything. It was just like, they're named now in the home sewing world. I don't know how to describe that, but I think it's cool that someone said, this is what you guys need to do. And we'll call it a full bust adjustment, All right, so I did not mark my side seam on this one because you just kind of don't on the back. So I'm gonna move this over here and pin it on there. Trying to keep that line parallel to the floor, and I already have that anchored, so it's pretty easy to do. Let's get rid of this a massive amount of fabric here. All right, so we have these, I can feel my armhole that I'm kind of going by today. These pins. Lower this a little bit. I feel like I don't really know what everyone's armhole looks like, but every time I see the armhole on the dress form for any of my things, I always think, is that normal? Hey, Barbara. All right, just your other square shoulder or wide back. Yeah, I definitely feel like I keep meaning to pull out that page in that book I saw last year where I think it was in one of the flat pattern books, which, when you're, like when you haven't looked at a book in a long time and you realize there's all this other info you never noticed. And so I was looking at, because I kind of felt like, I was kind of feeling like, were we really that prepared in school about being inclusive with sizing? And I looked back in my book and kind of ran across this. I didn't look for this, but then when I saw it there, I was like, we were prepared, but we weren't custom trained. We were trained to do things for mass production, right? So, but it is really interesting. They knew all these fit things, 30 years ago. Like, these are not, obviously they're not new fit issues. They're not new body types. And they just weren't looking at it like, hey, most of the population is this size. We should be drafting our base size as a size 14 or 16, not a size 8, 6, or 0, right? So, that's what we weren't really talking about. But what they did show in the book that I'm getting to is they have a profile of a woman just standing there, and they have I want to say they have 7 women, and they say all of the fit issues you can have. And it's really interesting because it'll say rounded shoulder, sway back, all those things, and narrow back shoulder, all those things, and I was like, oh, there it is. And the drawing is so dated, it's so late 70s, but it's actually accurate information. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, maybe I have a rounded shoulder because it's so slight, but it's just enough, So, all right, so here we go. Let's get this armhole a little bit better. kind of loose right there. Let's pull that in a little bit more. Like that. But like I said, I want to be adding ease to this, so I don't really want this to be too tight. And see, this is why when you say, oh, it's 7 inches long and 1¼ inches wide, we're all standard, right? Okay, let's get rid of some of this. Just get that a little bit cleaned up. All right, so let's true up some of these lines here. Good to change ink color when you start going back over things and know what your last ink color is. If it's black, then great. And then when you go to the next one, remember blue. So if there's only black here, I know I go by the black. But if it's black or blue, I go by the blue. Standard plus 5 inches or 5½ inch, yeah. Okay, so let's do the waist. So your dart should vanish, you know, like that's ideally what you're doing is you're getting it to where it gets to the vanishing point, like they say. And I would just mark the legs of the dart. This is just a prototype, right? You know, you get to fit it afterward, so no pressure. All right, that's my line. All right, so I think what I'll end up doing on the table is adding ease right here. So let's just talk a little bit about circumference a little bit. I bring this up occasionally because it's really good to remember that when you're at, like, say your seam allowance is off, and especially when you're a beginning sewist, well into being intermediate sewist, this is common. You make your seam allowances and you're like, oh my God, I'm sewing and I'm not being consistent and I don't realize it. And then that 5/8 inch seam allowance is turned into a 1/2 inch in most places, maybe 3/8 in a couple places because you were just kind of like, eek, there's a lot going on, you know, and it happens, right? Or maybe it gets bigger. That amount right there, especially if it's on a seam that is dealing with your circumference. So if it's here, here, your other side seam, your center front, anything going vertical around your body, if you're off at all, you have to multiply that by every seam there is, and that's how much your circumference can be off. So I saw this a lot when I sewed with the high school students because they were new to sewing. And seam allowance to them was extremely frustrating. And sometimes they just thought just getting that piece of fabric together was enough. And I'd say, yeah, but the thing is you have to use this 5/8 of an inch. And it just looked huge to them. Whatever the reason is, you know, you're dealing with a machine, right? There's lots of reasons why this happens. And I did it the other day. You guys saw me. I was like, oh, yeah, that seam allowance doesn't quite look like a 1/2 inch anymore, does it? Because I'm going around the curve, you know. So, but if you are, say you do a 1/2 inch seam here when the seam allowance is supposed to be 5/8, and it's a princess seam, right? And you do it again here, and you do it again here, and you do it again here, and you're only doing a 1/2 inch rather than 5/8, you've just added an inch across the front, right? So you've added a 1/8 of an inch and an 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. So it adds up really fast. And so when you're noticing that your fit isn't quite what you want, and then you realize, dang, I only need to take it in 2 inches and it'll fit. That doesn't seem like very much, right? 2 inches isn't very much, especially when you look at the body. And this is something I think as a sewist, it's really, really, really good to start paying attention to. No matter if you're sewing men's clothes or women's clothes, or if you're a guy sewing your own clothes or you're a woman sewing your own clothes, start noticing how much ease is on your garment. So when you put that garment on, pinch all the ease out. Like, I don't have any on this dress, but let's just say my dress is kind of loose, right? And I pinch this out, right? And I'm like, okay, this dress has, I measure both sides. Don't just measure one side, because this is an inch and that's an inch, right? That's 2 inches I'm pinching out. This is 2 inches right here. It adds up really quick, right? But when you start kind of paying attention to what that ease amount is on your garment, you'll start getting the feel for what you like and what you want in your garment. And so just me making this nice and smooth, this looks really nice, right? But I don't live my life like this. This isn't knit. I mean, this is how this is fitting, and this is like, this is like the performance knit from Spoonflower, so it's pretty stretchy. So I wouldn't wear this just out. I mean, it would have to fit so good for me to wear something this fitted, and even then I just don't really want to sit down in that all day long, stuff like that. So I can put this on the table and all of this is fine. I'm not going to touch any of this. So the ease I'm going to add is right here at this side seam. And so if I want 2 inches of ease in circumference, all I need to do is add a 1/2 inch to the back and a 1/2 inch to the front right here. And then I've added 2 inches in total circumference. That's all I have to do. It's very easy. And so if you want to take it out or take it in, this is a good spot. You don't really want to monkey around with any of this here. If you have a fit issue that you can take it out of your center back, awesome. I love taking excess out of the center back when there's a seam there and it's appropriate. So that's my little rant today. Yeah, I mean, Eliza, that could be, hey Jan, how's it going? Hello, Gulag, I caught this live. I love typos. I think that could be a couple of things, Eliza. I know that sometimes my darts don't do that either, and it's probably my sewing is like, meh, it can be the fabric, it could be ironing. But yeah, usually what I like is I like my dart to vanish kind of in the shadow of the fullest part. It's a good rant. Okay, good. I think I just want you guys to not shy away from doing that kind of math, because it is so critical to tipping the fit of your garments toward always fitting better. There, I said it. I mean, that I feel like once you start understanding how those little bits kind of add up and how much it is when you're actually holding and wearing it, you start kind of going, okay, this garment, this person's, this pattern says there's 6 inches of ease. What do I have in my life that has that much ease? Like that you could pinch, 3 inches like this on, right? That's a lot of fabric. So, Jan, right? That's the story of my life. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I think like those little like measurement things are, I think I see this a lot in knitting, because I meet a lot of new knitters that are like, I don't like math very much. Like when you start bringing up like, oh, well, how many stitches per inch is your gauge? Then they're like, the math's coming out, right? And I think we have this kind of weird, just block about wanting to deal with math. But if you just do it in like something that actually makes sense to you and you can apply it, it makes it a little more palatable. And don't think of it as math. Just think of it as, you know, I want a good fitting garment, you know. So that is, and there's a lot of math in knitting. And it's really funny. I've met knitters who are like, oh, I hate math. And I don't say a word. I'm like, you're doing so much math right now, you know, because they like it. They like what they're doing, and it's applicable to what they're interested in. And I think that's the difference. So I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. I'm going to clip this all the way to my blue line and get rid of some of this. So yeah, I could add that ease in right now, but I'm just going to do it on the flat pattern. I kind of like doing that so that I know it's like a clean 1/2 inch, and then when I go to true this all up and I pin it to itself rather than to the dress form, it's like tests it really good, you know? So yeah, so that vanishing point thing, I find like if you can get that dart to end away from that fullest part, like I'm saying this is flat. I know it's not flat, but you know what I mean. Like my bust is real. I've got a lot of flat surface here. I try and get my dart to finish before or kind of at the, you know, beginning of that peak, especially right here. Like I have a lot of side boob. I had a breast reduction and that's why. So I know that, and a lot of people don't have to deal with that. But the not back stitching on your dart at the vanishing point is really important. And also sometimes if you can curve your stitch line so that it's curving around the body. So in other words, I'm having trouble picturing it on the table. Let's see. Yeah, so you would curve away from the bodice and toward the dart a little bit. Then you can kind of, and just ever so slightly. You can probably Google this, actually. There's probably some really great focus tips, especially Threads Magazine, Eliza. I think Threads Magazine is really brilliant at talking about these kinds of issues. So, and let me tell you, a lot of people, that's their source. They may look like an expert, but Threads Magazine is like, I feel like the parent of all this kind of crowdsourcing information that's accurate. I love Threads Magazine. So, all right. So let's make sure we have all of our things marked here. Yeah. Armhole. I don't have my shoulder marked on the back. Woo! Right here. We have our princess line marked right there. That's more where it's at. No, it's right here. Sometimes I do a little, I don't know if you can see that, but I do a little arrowhead, so I know that's the spot. I have my dart, my armhole, neck. I don't really have this dart right here kind of fully fleshed out. This one right here. See, that's getting kind of high for me. It's also a little bit off. I'm having a little trouble keeping it on that line right there. There we go. It's a little better. Let's see. So that's my this is my vanishing point for this one, I'm hoping. And then this one here, it really wants to be a lot closer, and I think what I would rather do is relax my dart a little bit so that it doesn't have to. See, so you see that? I don't know if you're still here, Eliza. Oh, you don't. Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people who really focus on the fine tuning of the vanishing point of the dart, because sometimes you really need that vanishing point to end really close to the fullest part of the bust depending on the garment, and so people really focus on that, and there are some really nifty tricks. You know me, I'm kind of a practical, street sewist rather than the like prom and wedding dress and couture stuff. So, but yeah, the other thing, I don't know if you saw that, Eliza, but like right now this dart, if I really wanted to just pinch all of that out of there, the vanishing point ends up being really close to this full part. But if I take out a little bit and not make this dart as tight as it wants to be, the vanishing point drops a little lower. So maybe, because that makes sense, right? It's a bigger dart, it's going to be longer. So I'm going to kind of, I really want my vanishing point to be about right here. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, and do I really want a double darted bodice? It'll depend on what I'm making, That might be a little bit much, and if I could, I'd probably release one of them, but I know my shape, and it's really hard to get away from having the double dart. So, all right, so I have this marked, I have that marked. Oh, I'm super thirsty. So let's go with this one right here, and we'll try and get this to vanish about right here. Usually you want this, they call this the vanishing point, the back off of the apex. So it's usually an inch away from the apex. So it's an inch back off. So you really want this to end about an inch away. I'm obviously doing a little bit more, but like I said, I have a lot of side boob there. Side boob. All right, so I think we can take this off now. And actually, I'm going to leave it for a second because I want to drape this part right here real quick. Because I actually can't finish without it, so I might as well. It's here, it's on here. Let's do it. You can also drape in paper too. That's completely feasible. Like from here, the armhole dart. Is it already in the garment that you're making? Because you could pivot it somewhere else if it's if you're not too far along, or if you haven't cut it out in your real fabric. But yeah, I know sometimes these darts right here, depending on how your shape is, they are so prominent, but they're you don't see them very often, but they can be really useful. And we all have that, right? We've all had that fitting issue where we're like, oh, I got so clever, and then you have this weirdness right here, and you're like, oh, I wasn't clever at all. Now I need to get rid of that, So we've been there. All right, let me. The floor is looking really interesting right now. Let's see if I have a big enough piece here. Yeah, this will work. Except I don't like dealing with these fabrics with a fold, But I just need a little piece like that. Like that. Let's get rid rid of some of these little weird things because they're kind of distracting. Do I have like a regular ruler? I don't. Oh, let me check something. Whoa, okay. Yeah, right, Eliza? Yeah. I feel you on that one. Alright, so let's... I have never, like, draped just this little area right here. This is kind of hilarious to me. Normally you would do a skirt block. That's a very traditional style of, no, Eliza, this is exactly what we're talking about. Don't say sorry. That's what we're here for, right? I mean, I really want you guys to bring things like that up. And someone else might be like, oh, I just saw a tutorial on that, you know? Yeah, so very traditional pattern drafting is a basic block, basic bodice, front and back, and then your skirt, front and back. I know that sounds funny because that really leaves out men. But at the same time, that is how you get your torso done. And most dress forms are dress forms, not pant forms. I don't have my center front pin down below. This is one thing I'm kind of shocked that I did wrong. And that is, I was like, oh, there's no shaping at the center front. And I put the piece on the fold. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. So I don't have a center front seam right there, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. So dumb. It's actually a dumb thing that I did that. I'm about to mark it and pin, but I just love my polka dot fabric so much. I don't want to do that. All right, so let's see here. I am not doing a good job of this because the thing is, you would have a hip line. So you'd have your center front, your hip line. Yeah, your hip line, and maybe I think you might do the waist and the hip and the center front. You line those up and then you find your darts, and it's usually a two darts in the front waist and one in the back, I think, or I might have that wrong. So, not that you guys are all like, how do you do it in school? But that is how you do it. So like jeans that have that little yoke in the back, that is basically your darts. Because even though the yoke is going this way, the yoke, the darts have been pivoted and moved to where they're like sideways in there, kind of, so to speak. And that's how they, you get the shaping in the back of the pants. So if you're ever having trouble getting your pants to fit better, look at that yoke. Because if you were to lay the yoke on the back and lay up the overlap the seam allowances where the yoke sews to the back jeans, you would notice that it's not a straight thing. There's going to be like a little dart at the side seam there, kind of a horizontal dart, like right here. That's where you get to play with it if you need to fit that a little bit better. All right, so here's my excess here, and we're just going to go with where it is lining up at the front. I'm not going to monkey around with that because I need those darts to line up together, because I'm going to marry these two together and put the bodice at the seam line here. Like, I'm going to tape it together. I can't talk right now. I don't know why. Sorry. All right, so let's see here. We got so I'm kind of just looking at the grain line of my fabric, and that's how I know, since I didn't draw the hip line or the waist on there. So I'm kind of doing a little bit quick and dirty. Okay, so let's see. We're going to put that right there for now. And now we're going to clip down into our waist. Now I don't really need this to be super tight. And in fact, I will be adding, ease to this whole thing. So now you can kind of see I'm getting that nice torso shape. Let's draw our waist on here. Should be exactly where the bodice is, because it's going to sew to it. It's not even going to sew to it. It's going to actually be, there's not going to be a seam there. All right, and so remember when I said I'm going to be adding ease to the overall garment? It's going to be right here, and so then this will hang out from the body a little bit better. Your internet burped. Oh my gosh. I'm so using that expression, especially when I'm in a game with someone and they get kicked from the game. All right. So now we're getting that torso shape. You see that? And so this, like I said, these yellow pins, if you can see, they go like this. They are where that shirt sits. So I can actually show you. Here's the shirt. There's a lot of pins on this, but I can show you. I didn't iron this shirt either. But you can kind of see. You can also see my fit issue. My form's bigger than me a little bit. So that's one of the things I have to take into an account when I add ease, just not to add too much. But you can see I don't have this buttoned. Let's just button this really quick. This actually hangs pretty good in the front. It hangs pretty good in the front, but when you see, this is my fit issue right here. You see all that? And a lot of times what happens is I get, this isn't buttoned, so it is hanging. So the thing is, this is the funny thing about it, is that you would think my issue is because of my belly, right? But things actually end up hanging pretty good if there's a bust start. But then I get this massive amount of fabric back here. And it's usually, I don't want to say tight, but it fits really well across the shoulders. So this is that hem right there. So here, so take a good look at this. I mean, it looks like I'm sway back, doesn't it? And I actually talked to my chiropractor about it, because I was like, Bodice. He was like, yeah. And I could say, all right, he knows what I do for the most part. But I could be like, look, can I just get all fitting nerd on you and talk to you about a couple things? And he got really into it. And so he was like, all right, why don't you stand this way? And he was like, no, you're not sway backed. And he knew that already. But he was trying to figure it out. And he was like, your hamstrings are kind of tight. That's probably because I'm a toe walker. So I think a lot of this stems from me being a toe walker. So you can see how this fits me. It's over my dress, but the dress is pretty close. You can see here's the back. It's a little looser on me than the dress form. So, but this is, a good way to kind of get your... Hit the like button. Thanks. Oh my gosh, a bunch of you did. You guys are awesome. Yeah, I know. I really need to remind you guys about that. Commenting on videos, liking, and subscribing really help the channel. So, okay. So anyway, I kind of wanted to know where I kind of don't want to make my block the same length. I kind of want it to be about right here. So I just kind of want to figure that out. Kind of at that full hip. I don't know how high I can raise this thing. I'm always like, I have had a dress form fall off the top once, and it was awful. It was very startling. So I'll square across, but then also do a right angle at the side seam, and that's how I'll find that hemline. This is about where I'm going to do that. All right. Let's do the other one. And then we're going to be able to true it. And then I'm going to, what time is it? Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And then I'm going to draft a pattern to fit. I mean, I could fit this, but I kind of know this fits because I just made it fit, you know? Kind of like cheating, but I'm not cheating. Let's see here. Again, I have no center back line because I'm lame. Can't believe I did that. On the lower half at least. I mean, look at that big gap right there. You probably can't see that, but let's get this. I told myself I wouldn't need it today, and I didn't figure out that center line. So then I don't have my hip line, but you can see, look at all that. I want to make this green line parallel to the floor, so I'm just kind of doing that right now. Let's see how that goes right there. This is me. That is me right there. You probably wouldn't have this much of a gap. Look at that. You can even see it right there. This dart wants to be like way over here too, not even near that. I caramba. Can I get it over there? Yes, I can. Let's see. Let's just get this right here. Try and keep that dart on the green. I don't want two darts because I'm going to get rid of the seam, right? So let's try that. Let's clip the waist so we can get a better idea. And we'll deal with that in a second. Yeah. I think I just need a longer dart on this one, and that makes sense. I have a lot more to pinch in. Good thing belly doesn't go, or ice cream doesn't go on the back, right? And so say my dart, so say my hem finished right here and I still have dart pinched, that is totally fine. You've probably seen that where the dart starts like this through the hem. That's fine. I mean, obviously, right? That's how most blocks are. I guess what I'm saying is just because I'm doing kind of a fisheye right here, it doesn't mean it's going to vanish before it gets to the hemline. That's okay. And you guys know that. better. Let's see if I can get rid of this. I like this. I like the way that's looking. I don't like this. But it's there. I feel like that's... Oh, no, you don't. I'm just going to drape it out because this is going to be seamless here, and we'll see. I may not get away with that. But we'll see, right? Okay. Just kind of eyeballing my hem right now. All variables I can deal with later. Start here, and then we're going to say our vanishing point is about right here. Okay, let's get the side seam. Look at that little angle right here. I don't really like that. It looks nice and straight here. It doesn't really here. I wonder if that's just the optical illusion because of the grain line of the fabric. Might be. Alright. Center back, center back. We know that's center front. Center front. And X out that line. Let's true it up. Are you done, Sydney? Oh, nice. Is that a local sewing teacher for you? I kind of want to do something like that. I think it would be really fun to have sewing classes with small groups. And I could see people's like sewing machines and stuff, you know, like what if it was like a Zoom style thing, and then we could all share what we're working on and get help. I think it would be fun. All right, so let me switch this. Something like that. More like that, right? Here we go. Oh, Palmer Pletch. That might be the other thing I was thinking of. Look at that boob. All right, so here's my start of my bodice. Make way, make way. Okay, let's see. I got some scrap paper out. And you know what? I'm going to use good paper instead. paper is getting kind of curly. More than kinda. Alright, so do the front first. No idea why there's a nail on my table there. You like that, Patty? Alright, so let me sharpen a couple of pencils. I like using soft pencils for certain things, but I really like hard pencils when I'm doing drafting because the pencil stays sharper longer, but it is a really faint pencil line, and it's also, but it's more accurate. And if you've never like shopped for pencils based on like the softness or the hardness of the lead, besides like when you were in high school and you had to have a number 2 pencil for your test, it's the little B. When it has a B, it's soft, and when it has an H, it's hard. So these are soft lead, and they're much more visible. They also get dull really fast. I need a see-through ruler. There's no way I'm drafting with that. Here we go. No, I want a new one. Let me find a good ruler. Rulers get dull and they get kind of inaccurate, so yeah. Alright, so we can take out our pins. Hopefully all our markings are there. And we can see. And I like to look at it immediately and go, alright, am I understanding all the markings I put on there right away, right? Because I'm like, okay, you know, I don't want to lose anything. So I kind of look at, and here's my dart leg. Here's my vanishing point. This vanishing point is very sloppy right here. So we'll just mark that. And sometimes I circle junctures to know that that's where I'm at. So, and now I can lay this directly on that grain line there. You can iron it afterward, but I don't recommend it because you can shrink it. So let's just do this. Some weights, smooth it out best we can. Just like that. And then I'm going to use my tracing wheel. This is kind of the one specialized tool you would need but for doing this, because it'll transfer my fabric to the paper with just some perforations. I'm going to mark my princess seam. Apex. So a lot of these other lines that I'm doing, like the apex, they're just going to be helpful for if I take this block someday and do something different with it. Alright, so now check and see if you got everything before you just rip it off. Done that. I'm like, oh, I forgot all the vanishing points. Great. How do I line that back up? Alright, and so now we have this. I could probably toss it, but I'll wait just as a reference when I'm like, what? Over something I did, you know? And I'm doubting. So. Oh, that's cool, Sydney. That'll be fun. All right, so I'm thinking this probably was kind of a dicey way to have done this. And it's very clear it was. So what am I going to do to make this work? I kind of want to just cut this like this. Put this here. See, it's just not lining up. Lining up my dart leg and my waist. I do this a lot. I can kind of see if it lines up because I'm looking at holes you probably can't see right here. And I do this to see if it's stacking right on top of itself. I do that a lot with drafting. All right, let me draw this all in so you can see it. Is that okay? You can see that pretty good, huh? I need to still find this shape right here, and I'll do that when I go to close the dart and find it. This is very funky right here to me. This little shape right here. Normally it would be more of like a right angle. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. What the funkiness happened there? All right. So here's that fisheye look. So we need to move this dart this way. This is the apex. This is the vanishing point for this dart right here. And this one's for this one, but this should be centered down the middle like that. See? Let's measure it. 1 3/4, 2. We're going to take this and see if we can standardize it a little bit. Draw a straight line down the middle. And then 1 3/4 on either side. I mean total. Like that. And that will be my new dart leg. The reason I did this, you can't or you can. Can't tell if that's a typo. You know how can does that sometimes? You can see it it looks pretty good on my screen, but I know in some cases it might not be. This is my funky thing right here. That looks so funky to me. This looks pretty good, but could be where my side seam is on my dress form. Could be a little bit off because I put it there. Or, yeah, we'll look at that. So, the reason I just shifted that dart all the way over here is because I'm going to kind of go by where that vanishing point was on there. I really want it to be on grain, and I don't know if you've ever, okay, cool. if you've ever sewn a dart and say you followed the pattern perfectly and you cut it out on grain, you know you did that, and then you go to sew it, but for some reason the dart legs don't match and you get those torque lines across your dart, it's because it wasn't drafted on the true grain line, and it wasn't drafted properly. I hate to say it, but it's true, and we come across it occasionally. It's not the end of the world or anything, but it does make it a little bit tricky to sew, and it can lead to some issues, you know. So I know that if these two legs are over here, but the center of the dart's over here, that's going to happen. So I know I'm not a big fan of just shifting my dart leg towards the center front. So what I'm going to do right now is measure this dart leg to the center front and see where it's at. And it puts it at about right, well, you probably can't see. It puts it a little bit like right here. And that's okay. Remember, this is me. I'm not doing this for a client, and I'm not doing this to sell as a pattern. It's my body, and so that can happen, right? So, okay, same here. So now I have this. This is my guiding line right here down the middle of the dart. It's kind of like a Christmas tree, right? You need a strong trunk in the middle of your tree so your tree doesn't do this kind of thing in your house. So we have about 2+ inches. So we're going to do that on either side here. Now this right here, I'm going to probably watch that. What am I doing? No. I'm going to watch this whole thing right here because I spliced that apart or cut that apart and did it. So, right, exactly. So then here's, you know, not looking like a fisheye really because it's just like wider down there. But that's okay. Right now we're okay with this because I'm going to be adding some ease here, and I might even be able to like relax this a little bit. So this is just our trial. So let's see if we can kind of get the bust to be a little truer as well. The bust I may have a little more trouble with because it was pretty hard to get it in there. I'm going to look at this like that. It's not that much different, honestly. Let's see, the width of the dart, it's 2 1/4, so it would put it about right here and right here. That's actually pretty good. I really want that to be my line right here. All right, let's add a little bit of ease. And I'm just going to add a straight up 1/2 inch to my side seam. So that'll give me 2 inches of ease on my bodice. And then we'll just add an inch hem. I'm going to add an inch and a half hem. As my launching off point. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to my shoulder and my armhole. Quarter inch to my neckline, always. Never half. Never bigger than that. If I ever draft garment patterns, you guys are probably going to hate me because it's always going to be quarter inch there. All right, so now I'm not going to cut this out exactly yet because I need the back. So we're just going to set this aside, and I still need to true this up right here and this right here, but we could probably mark this a little differently so it's a little more obvious. And sometimes what I like to do with notches is this kind of thing to highlight them. So I don't forget. Like say there's an earthquake and I don't get to come back tomorrow. I'm kind of half joking, but I live in California. It's usually fires we have to worry about around here. All right. see. Can I get my back on this piece? Yeah, okay. So let's chop this off in this direction. Alright, paper's a little curly. Get rid of that. Trying to stay away from my dart and get it all the way in there. That works pretty good. Let's see how this one looks. See how if it's is just as funky as my other. I knew that was going to be a problem, but it was one of those things where it's like, I know this isn't going to work out perfectly, but I can't remember why, so let's just see. Been a long time. All right, so let's see here. Let's do that. Take out our pins. Stacking my waist seams right there. My dart, this waist seam. I'm kind of breaking some rules trying to draft a torso block with a quarter of a skirt block, and I did get my more of a taper there, huh? Because see, when you say you were doing this flat pattern style, you'd have your block, your basic block with the waist seam, and you know it looks like it's a straight line from here, but we all know that if this pattern piece was on the table, sorry, I'm pointing at my dress form right there, the waist seam there, that's actually a curve, right? And so if you have your waistline curve like this, and then you have a skirt block or whatever you're using to draft the bottom part of the torso, the skirt has a scoop in it as well, right? So you have this little fisheye. So this is really what I should be doing. I would lay this on here, and I would have had my hip line drawn on there, which I didn't do, and this would be sitting here like that. So there would be my waist, and this is my waist right there, and there would be this little horizontal dart there. So we're kind of going around that. Here, we'll just do that. Maybe lower this a little bit. I'm just trying to get it to be about right. I really just don't want that small of my back stuff, and I know my body's going to make that, so I'm just going to kind of draft this in there like that and see if I can get around it. I like doing experiments, you know me. Alright, so there we go. So where's my tracing wheel? I did do my, yeah, okay, I was making sure I did my waistline on there because I really want that. Just want to make sure I follow the correct one. The shoulder blade line will be handy for something like a yoke or something later on. So yeah, I mean, you could. You mean like, what do you mean? Do you mean like with the yoke thing I was talking about earlier, or darts? I mean, darts is really what you're gonna handle it with, and when you blend a skirt to a bodice to do a torso block, you literally blend that out, and then you deal with the consequences if there are any. But remember, the garment industry is geared towards standardizing things, so it's not as difficult because they're not trying to fit you. They're trying to fit everybody. So it's a little bit more fake, for lack of a better word. So, all right, let me get my waist seam in here. I want that. Okay, we got everything. You gotta remember, like, I get to fit this on me, right, and see how it does. Yes, no, oh, you moving the darts. Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm going for right now is a seamless waist right there, right? So I don't want a seam here. I want a little skimming top that kind of comes down to my high hip. Oh, nice, Derek. Enjoy. We don't get to enjoy that here. Because I'm trying to kind of basically drape that out of there, I don't have many options because, yeah, I could have more darts, right? But I can't just have a dart going from the waist down here. It has to be fisheye, right? So, you know, it's very common to have two back darts. Have you guys ever seen that before, where there's two darts on each side of the back bodice? So, meaning like, well, I don't have that issue though. The jeans yoke is a sideways dart. I see what you're saying though. No, because usually what they would do is they would match the points right here of this piece and this piece right here, and then you'd have this, right? And you'd ignore it. Right? We're all jealous, Derek. And then you would draft your darts. You would marry the lower dart, the waist darts, to the back waist darts, right? So the bodice darts to the skirt darts. But you know, this is the great thing about this, right, Barbara, is that since it's custom, you really can do whatever works for you, as long as you're not, like, I think, I'm not a purist when it comes to a lot of things regarding sewing and custom stuff. If it works for you, as long as you're not getting weird grain line things, that's where I draw the line, is the grain line stuff. Yeah, exactly. Ah, Sydney. I'm glad you still get to work, but another meeting. Your last one wasn't really a meeting, was it? Wasn't it a, like, fun sewing thing? So I think, like, you could do whatever you want. Like, having two darts. I like two darts because it makes it a little bit more of a even fit and transition here. Some people don't like sewing darts. Some people don't like darts in general. And some people don't want that look, right? So you've got to come up with it somewhere else. You can't just say, I'll just take that out of the side seam. You can do that to a point, but then you'll be shooting yourself in the foot for something else. So you know, this amount that you're taking out here is more scooped on this part of the body than it is here. Your waist goes out a little bit more than your, at least for me, the lower back. So you could split this up into two darts, and what they do, they're usually like that, like 1 and 1, you know? They're a little offset from each other. Labeling may not, yeah, I know, exactly. No, it was a fun song, that. Yeah, I know, and that's what I mean, Ray. It's like, that's why I say, because I feel kind of bad when especially new folks will come to the stream and say, do I need to do a blah, blah, blah? And I feel like I sound like I don't know what I'm doing when I'm like, I don't know what that is. When it's like a fit, like the first time I heard full bust adjustment, I ran across it years before I started the stream, and I was like, maybe not years, it was like the year before, I was like, what's that? Yeah, there you go, Sydney. Yeah, so non-stableness, yeah. Yeah, so I remember thinking, how do I not know this? Why I feel kind of like a dummy. And then when I started seeing like the ginger jeans, all the jeans sewing, right? And then I saw all the fit things directed at that, I was like, what is all this? Because we didn't talk about it like that in college. So it's not that I didn't know how to fit it. It's not labeled that way. You would just say, hey, you need to fix the tightness across the upper back. You wouldn't say do a full shoulder adjustment or whatever that's called, a wide shoulder adjustment. That wasn't labeled that way. So you got to do what works for you. And labeling is helpful, right? It's kind of like a stereotype. Stereotypes are terrible, but they're also somewhat true sometimes, and sometimes it does kind of paint the picture you're looking for, right? For better or worse, right? So, I mean, I think it's the same with this. There's nothing wrong with doing any of these fit adjustments. The labeling is helpful because then you get a little bit of consistency. You know what to search for, you know what to get help with, and you know how to communicate with others. But I think lingo is always a tricky thing, and I think using any kind of lingo sometimes alienates others, so it's kind of like one of those weird things, so. Yeah, right, Barbara? That's how I felt about my Scout. Yeah, but you see the benefit of the full bust. Yeah, I like sewing darts. I don't mind them. And I think because my bust is so full, the way it's shaped, I do find that I like them kind of hidden in the shadow of the bust. So I try to put them kind of in a non-traditional place because I don't want them being pressed out by my bust. Yeah, it's simply definition, exactly. One of the reasons I got so many clients when I was a freelance pattern drafter was that I wasn't hung up on people being industry trained, garment industry trained, or using the right lingo. It didn't matter to me. I just feel I'm very much, like I look back on my path and I think about how interested in communication I am. The fact that I took journalism in high school, like all those weird little things that pointed to where I'm at right now doing a live stream. I'm really about communication, and I really like having communication. It's why I like talking with people of whatever their interests are, political or otherwise, because I feel like communication is key for everything. And if we can't talk about things, then things never progress, right? So I think that just because someone didn't know how to say armhole or whatever they would bring to me, or how they would describe things, that didn't bug me at all. If they could draw a picture of it, even if it was bad, or cut out magazine pictures and show me, that's all I needed, you know? So I've made fabric bowls. I really enjoyed that. Okay, let's get back to this. I'm getting hungry. All right, so I'm at the point now I want to move this. I'm going to make this dart a little truer. It's 3 7/8. And I think this one's a little more flexible. So I'm going to, what did I just say, 3 7/8? I'm going to move this one right here. There, and there's the full width of my dart is a little over 1 inch. Well, like the book said, 1.25 inches wide, 7 inches long. Look at that, mine's 6 inches. That makes sense, I'm kind of short-waisted. So we're going to make this a little over 1/2 inch on either side. And we're going to kind of do that. All right, and then here is our vanishing. I didn't really have one, remember that, when I was draping it? So that'll be interesting to see if I actually still have that when I go to sew it. All right, so let's start looking at this one. Get my pattern scissors out, one of my definite comfort objects. And I'm just going to true up this shoulder and neck first. I always like right angles. You'll hear me harp on about this. I say I'm not a a purist about certain things, but right angles at your seams, yeah. So like right here, you want a right angle. You always want a right angle. I have argued about this with beginners that they're just like, but it's fine, it meets. And I'm like, but it's not gonna stay that way. So you can't just put your shoulder, you know, so that it meets, because you might get a point right there, right? You might get a point at that juncture. You have to have a right angle, or at least a smooth transition. If you can't do a right angle, you have to put your shoulders, your side seams, whatever your seam junctures are. If you're a new pattern drafter, this is absolutely paramount, and I won't let go of it. You have to have smooth transitions, because what happens when you're sitting at your sewing machine is you'll just lop that off anyway. So just do it at the table. Hey, Kirby. You know it. I'm on my second one of the season. They need to get a little better faster, though. They're not quite there yet. You enter my stream while I'm ranting. How are you, Kirby? I'm sorry I've been really bad about texting you back, but I've been sick and a little foggy. I didn't have allergies. All right, so here we go. I'm going to look now at all these junctures here, and it's going to help true up the rest of my pattern. Yeah, Barbara, I totally get you there. All right, so I'm drawing an inch line here. My seam allowance is a 1/2 inch there, so I just draw the inch so that I can line up this cut edge to there, and I know that I've got it lined up with the seam allowance. So this is the rant I will go on. You have to line up your seam line at the seam line. Don't line it up at the point. Like, I don't line this point up to the edge of that. I line up the seam line on top of itself right there. Okay, so then look at that. We have a nice smooth transition right here. This is my cut line. And then right here, you can see like this shoulder is a little wider than this one. But we're going to go by the front. For me, usually the front reigns supreme, because I usually spend a lot more time on it and it's a little more accurate. In the back, I usually kind of start getting a little sloppy. So, yeah, I'm glad I'm feeling better too. Yeah, not quite to July. Right, miss, exactly. So we're going to go like this. That is the seam allowance right there. And we're going to blend this in. Try and get to that 1/2 inch down there, but when we get that side seam there, we'll see how we're doing for sure. All right. All right, so let's cut this right here. You can always tape paper back. I'm sure one of my instructors just rolled on their grave hearing me say that, but it's okay. All right, so here we go. That is my line. I draw lines too sometimes when it all starts getting a little messy, you know? Yeah, right? Exactly, Ray. I know. I say always try and get your shoulders and your armholes fitting good. And then work down. Shoulders, armholes, neckline, get all this fitting well, then go down. Because if you get this fitted well and then it creates something up here, this for me, because you have one cylinder, you have your head, which is another cylinder, going to this upper part of the body, that's a lot. It's where that term bifurcated comes from, right? Because you have the bifurcated pattern, you have the sleeve going to the bodice or the arm. So you need to get this part, everything from here up fitting perfectly, then deal with the rest. That's my opinion. All right, so let's see. We got our lines here. This is looking good. All right, so now let's look at if I added... I haven't added my seam allowance to this yet. I added a 1/2 inch for ease, and now I want to add a 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So I'm glad I remembered that. It just happens to be the same. We'll just write it on here so we don't chop it off, because I would totally do that. So we'll add 1 inch here because that's a 1/2 inch plus the seam allowance. There we go. Now, I'm still suspicious of this little juncture here, but you never know. So we're going to take a chance right now. We're going to cut these lines off here. It's hard to find your dart shape when you are using this kind of paper. I usually like to transfer it to a soft piece of paper and then do it. There we go. Perfect piece of soft paper. And I'll show you how to do that. So I will transfer my dart. You need the whole dart on the paper. Transfer your dart like this. This is your line there. So let's just carry this line all the way out. Make sure you can get it accurate all the way out there like that. All right. And you need your apex right there. I think I got that right. Now fold it the way it's, oh, I shouldn't have done that on my pattern below. Fold this the way you're going to sew it. I have dotted lines right here that I'm following. Try not to let this fold past the vanishing point like that. I'm really good at this, and I know this is actually tricky when you're doing it yourself. Hi Helen, how's it going? So when I do that, I actually hold this right here down. So let me draw it in. This is the dart. In other words, don't fold it like past there, right there. You don't want it to go there, so just hold it down like this, and I kind of hold it in front of the vanishing point, bring it over, and then do that. It'll make the paper go up. That's your boob. That's okay. All right, and now get this all folded, and now chop it off like that. Then you have your dart legs and your point. And look at how flat mine is. Very interesting. So the other thing I want to say about when you're doing stuff like this is don't assume just because your pattern pieces is not looking like something you've seen before that it's wrong. I'm just going to end that sentence right there so it has the most impact. Don't assume just because it doesn't look like what you've seen before that it's wrong. Because that looks pretty weird, isn't it, right? But I told you, I already have this. I'm going to have my eye on this thing over here. And it's me. This is not a standard pattern. All right, so now let's get our juncture here. Kind of go back and forth. You can't just assume. I've tried to skip steps before. It don't work. So line up. So I could actually make this a little bit more of a right angle, which is great. I'm really glad to hear that. Okay. There we go. And then when you want to figure out the lower half, you're going to close your dart, right? So mark it here, close your dart, and you're going to walk it down. Now, if you want that same little scoopy whoop there, you can do this. You just need to make sure that you're hitting the same spot on the side seam as where that line actually is. Because remember, this is actually the side seam right here. This is ease. This is seam allowance. This is the seam line right there, right? So you can walk it along like that. And then you come around, close your dart. And then you get your little curve here, the same, which is a good idea. Just like that. No, I'm the weird shape. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I hitting it? Yeah. Sorry, guys. Is that better? It was a piece of paper. Hopefully that's okay. All right, so tell me if it's not, though. I think my phone is close to the mic, and I have been getting texts from Kirby. You're outed. So, so right here at this waist here, I would like to get that same thing, that seam transition. So I can do the same thing. Lay out my line here. I got lost a little bit of paper there, but it'll be okay. And see, I have this nice curve here, and I just want to go right into that, just like that. So we're going to lower this a little bit so we can kind of keep it the same. And then when I get to about here, I start looking at where that right angle will be at the center back, just like this. Like that. It's all better. Okay, yeah, sorry guys. There was a piece of paper close to the microphone there and I kept bumping it. I think that's what it was. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. We're now at the point where we would want to cut this out and sew it up and test it and see. And I don't have a sleeve yet either. I really need a sleeve block. I'm going to have to probably draft that from scratch, which that's how I feel about that. I don't have an arm on here, so and you never would drape a sleeve in college or anywhere at all, ever. You would use a block, a flat pattern. All right, so let's cut this out. And then the other thing to do is remind yourself, 1/2-inch seams. I can see it on there. I know me, but some things like the hem, I like to write that on there in my really bad writing. I'm gonna leave this extra piece of paper right now because right now my shirt doesn't have a closure. So, meaning I have a center front line that could be on the fold or a seam right now. I don't have a placket, I don't have an overlap, I don't have anything. So I really need that to be able to take it on and off to try it, especially even on the dress form. Unless I only do half, but I don't want to just do half. So one thing, like say you're kind of a novice at this kind of thing, like draping and stuff like that, and you're kind of overwhelmed because you're realizing, oh wait, my dress form doesn't answer all the questions. It's only making me ask more, right? But that's okay. Just try and do it in bite-sized chunks. And when you start getting to like, oh shoot, I don't have a sleeve, just like I'm saying right now, I don't have one. For you, if you have one pattern, like what, remember how I just put that blue shirt on there and I'm like, I like this armhole, this is fine. Even if I don't like this armhole, that's okay. That's still good information. Bad fits are good information because then you can kind of go, oh, I know I don't like this, don't do this, right? Especially to underscore that statement of just because it doesn't look like something I've seen before doesn't mean it's wrong. Maybe what you're seeing now is going to be right and it's going to fit you and you'll get comfortable seeing it that way. And it's also what you're going to be like using to transfer to a store-bought pattern. You're going to be like, I'm going to lay this on my store-bought pattern and kind of make it fit me, right? So if you have that shirt in your closet that you're like, this one's pretty good, I kind of like this, is kind of where I'm at as far as what I'm drafting, it's kind of similar, this is the fit I want, use that sleeve and that armhole, because you're not drafting patterns to sell. You're not going to be in danger of copyright things or things like that. You can use it as your base. So that's okay, even if it's ready to wear. So that's good. You doing the, oh, Latanya, nice. Sydney needs to hear that. I think Sydney's putting off hemming hers because she's worried about how they'll be to wear. But I love those things. I love those Tanya culottes. Those things are awesome. All right, so that looks like me. The front is much bigger than the back. I didn't do this dart shape yet. This one, I kind of got a vanishing point before I got to the hem, so fingers crossed. So let's do this shape here. This, at least the lower half, as long as you can get that amount, that works. Oh, I didn't do my waist. Great, that'll be kind of tricky. Let's see if I can get this back on here. I could just trace it again, but it'll be too many dots. There you go. I used to use pins as an awl all the time. All right, and then trace that. Oh, it's pretty smooth. Line it up. All right, remember, first draft. The Tanya's. Oh, you did? Awesome, Sydney. Oh, I'm going to look at your pictures. I can't believe I missed that. You know what? I was really out of it last week. Helen, you can see mine on the website. You can look on on Instagram, but you're going to have to scroll back a bit. And I'm wearing a white shirt, the Deer and Doe Mellow Low shirt, and my Tanya culottes are pink, like bubblegum pink with like a tropical floral thing and flamingos. I know, crazy, right? It was a needle sharp box and I love them. But oh, I can't wait to see yours, Sydney. And you love them? I'm so glad you love them. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, and on my website, if you just go to soso.live, you can just put in the word Tanya on the search bar and it'll come up like that. That's what's so nice about that. It's so easy. All right, so I really want to eat soon, but I think I'll just wait till tomorrow. Actually, I do this. I'm like, I just need to do this, and it is like all the steps are out in my head, but it doesn't mean it doesn't take time. So tomorrow, I think what I'll do is draft this into a little pattern that looks a little bit like a shirt, and then cut it out, and then we'll sew it. I think I can do all that tomorrow. If not, we'll sew it on Saturday. And then I am on my way with my basic block. So center back, center front. And then what's the date? The 27th. I try and always do this when I'm doing my block. And I love writing terrible on my own patterns. It's awesome. So let's see. Where's my screw punch? I got my screw punch for my darts. This is kind of a big hole. I really need to change it to the smaller screw punch now. Why isn't that cutting? This thing is wicked sharp. That's why. I don't want to whack the table again. Sorry, guys, that I did that. Oops. Mark my notches. Mark my darts with my notches. And then this one. So the way I drafted these darts also, just anybody like that 1 or 2 toucans. Thank you, Helen. That's what it is. Toucans, flamingos. Oh yeah, Barbara. I haven't checked mine. I should look and see if mine need that. Just a note for any beginning pattern drafters out there, or people that are drafting. I drafted these darts with the end point immediately. I didn't do a traditional style flat pattern drafting where you do usually this is what I was talking about. There's like, it's like a back off. There's and I know my dart should usually be under my apex, but my apex is kind of in this region because I have this like flat bust. Not flat, but I just mean like I have a nice flat surface there, so my apex can kind of move around a little bit. But in traditional flat pattern drafting, you will have your end and then a back off. And I didn't do that because I don't need to, because I know what I want. So you can just remember that you might need that back off. And the back off is usually referred to as getting it away from the apex. Or it's where you're going to be marking the end of the dart, but that's not where you end up sewing it. You sew just past the point. Just depends on what you're doing. So there's lots of terminology that is interchangeable and means different things. Just depends on who you're working with. So, all right. This pattern is Cerami. All right, so that's it. I will see you tomorrow, though. I'm going to draft this into a shirt that I want. I'll come up with something by tomorrow. I kind of know what I'm looking for, like a little darted top. I just need to decide what kind of collar I want, or if I want a collar, but I probably want a collar. And I need a sleeve. So I need to figure that out. Maybe I'll be drafting a sleeve tomorrow and not cutting something out. So the drape pattern. You mean the one over there? These right here? Like how far I'll come from this? Is this what you mean, Karen? Because I can save these. Side by side of the drape versus your flat. And I think actually what will also be really interesting for you guys is when you see this on my dress form and then on me, because it'll still be a little bit different because my dress form's a little bigger. You're welcome, Ray. Is that what you mean, Karen? I just want to make sure so I save these pieces. I'll save them. Right. Where's that? This one is that one. Okay. That's this one. All right, yeah, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. It's free. And if you want to throw $1 my way, you can. In the comments, there's the Streamlabs thing. You can make a one-time donation, and I have Patreon as well. You finish pattern you make from draping versus a pattern made solely flat without draping. Have I done that? Do I have one of the, I haven't made a basic block with a flat pattern lately, Karen, so I don't know if I have one for you to show you the difference. But maybe I'm misunderstanding. Yeah, and like the video if you can. That's great. And anytime you watch one of my videos, commenting on it helps as well, even if you just say thanks or something like that. So, all right. And if you want to see any past projects I've done, which we have done a ton of them, it's kind of shocking. I think we made 56 items on camera last year. We made more than that, but I think that's garments. I don't think we're going to get up to that number this year because we've kind of done a lot of different things. But yeah, you can check it out on my website, soso.live. And I have a few patterns for sale, but not too many yet. I'm still working on the chicken boots patterns becoming patterns right now. Right now, the zip double just came back from the testing. I got some really great feedback, so I'm working on that. And I just sent that off, so that's almost ready. And next will be the wallaby. So yeah, that's what I'm wondering too, right? Because you're just making more work. Because I didn't do me on that. I did my other dress form. Do you remember that, Karen? I don't know if you were here, but I did my other dress form, which is my teenager's size. Almost exactly. So the comparison wouldn't be fair. So yeah. It would be fun though to do the flat pattern based on my dress. But yeah, I mean I could do it flat pattern without draping. With just measurements. I love experiments. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. So same time, same place. Be there, be square. All right, hasta mañana, iguanas.